Hello, dear audience. Hello, everybody. Welcome back from the break. I want to welcome you also to our panel debate of the European Photovoltaic Solar Energy Conference, which is today online, and it's also for us an experiment. For me, it has the advantage that my luggage cannot get lost like in the last panel, which I needed to moderate last year. But it will be also for me a new kind of experience. We decided to call this panel, or getting the title, The Role of Photovoltaics in the Green Deal and the European Union's Recovery Perspectives and Chances for a Sustainable Future. And clearly, this is governed by, as this year is a particular year, not only for this conference, but for all of us, the panel debate intends to gather some views of how present and future PV markets will be affected by the consequences of the pandemic. We will certainly focus on the European situation, where often we hear that with the pandemic, there are more important problems to solve than climate change. Yet, we learned also that global problems need global efforts, and not only the Fridays for Future is as much active, but of course less visible than before the coronavirus outbreak. And it is the younger generation which is in need for a perspective, in particular, as at least for the next 20 years to come, public spending will be restricted by a huge debt across Europe. The European Union has recently agreed on a massive investment in the weaker economies of Europe, called Next Generation European Union, taking this opportunity to modernize and transit into new technologies, and in the same moment, creating more investment serving to combat climate change, taking up the European Green Deal from 2019. I think we all here agree that photovoltaic technology is part of such a modernization, which shall serve these two goals of new technologies and combating climate change. And this debate today wants to illuminate the views of some leaders and elaborate on challenges ahead in research, production technologies, job creation, policies, and citizen engagement. And before I introduce a little bit more in detail our panelists, I would ask the audience to participate in a small poll. We will make a poll before and after this debate to see how much you could learn and take home from this. And so that's the question. Do you think the European post-pandemic recovery plan for Next Generation EU will boost PV in Europe? Yes or no? So this is the question for the poll. And you will see now here live how the replies will go. I think we need to wait a minute until it stabilizes. And it's not so important now to look to the absolute figures, but it will be interesting what is after the panel debate. So I hope that the panelists will be able to convince the audience that PV will be boosted in Europe, but let us see. Let us wait a moment. We are now in 74, 26. Okay, it seems to stabilize at 75%, 25%. So 75% believe in that we get a boost from PV in Europe, and 25 do not. So I note this, and we will compare this at the end of this debate. Now, I hope I can see all our participants. Maybe you can confirm this, because we have four very distinguished persons. First of all, Walburga Hemmetsberger, the CEO of Solar Power Europe, then Dr. Günther Erfurt, the CEO of Meyer Burger, Professor Marco Topic, Chair of ETPV, and Paolo Rossi, Director of Agenzia Elettrica di Massagno. Okay, you are all here. Welcome. Great that you can participate in that. And what I will do is I introduce you briefly, and I give you a question, which is the same now for all of us, and also a possibility to present a little bit your organization or what you're standing in for what can contribute to this panel, and then after we go dive into the question. So let me start with Walburga Hemmetsberger. She is CEO of Solar Power Europe, I think the largest photovoltaic association in Europe. She is since 1.5 years, I think, in this position. And before she was part of the European Hydrogen Fuel Cell Joint Undertaking. And looking back, I think, into 18 years in Brussels. So also, I think, quite knowledgeable when it comes to policy making and so on. So that's why this critical question goes first to you. What means the Green Deal for your organization?
Thank you very much for the introduction, Heinz. Thanks very much for having me here today. As you said, the European Solar Power Europe is the biggest European solar association in Europe. We're representing more than 200 members all along the value chain. So we have the entire value chain in our membership. What is the Green Deal for me? It's a huge opportunity, and it's a huge opportunity not just for me, but for the whole solar sector, because it's not just a buzzword. You know, the European institutions and Europe as a whole has to deliver on an incredible challenge. The challenge is having Europe being carbon neutral by 2050. And that cannot be done by the measures we have seen so far. So Europe has to be very bold, and the renewables will be the backbone of the Green Deal. And that is a huge opportunity for solar. I will go into more details on the figures when I have my presentation afterwards. But for me, it's a huge opportunity.
Of Meyer Burger. He has quite a history of real world manufacturing. He was with Deutsche Solar in Freiburg, then with Solar World, and then with Meyer Burger. And I think he will tell us later also something about the production site in Germany, which from 2021 is producing smart wire technology modules. It's exactly where Solar World used to be, and I think there is also an expansion to 5 gigawatt. It's a Swiss company, not a German company. So what would the Green Deal mean for you?
Thank you, Heinz, for the kind introduction. And also a big thank you to the organization. I think it heavily improves on the carbon footprint of this whole conference, that we all do not need to travel and still be very effective in all of these sessions. So yes, I'm Gunther Effert. I'm representing Meyer Burger, indeed a Swiss headquartered company around since 1953, but the largest sites and largest footprint of Meyer Burger is in Germany. And we are now rolling out the first project in Europe to bring solar manufacturing back at large scale, specifically using our own proprietary heterojunction smart wire technology. Which is a result of more than 10 years of research efforts, I have to say perfectly supported by the European Union, by the federal government of Germany, also by the states in terms of the R&D support we have received. Speaking about the Green Deal and the opportunities, I can only echo what Walburga said. In addition to that, I believe it will be the foundation for a complete new economical structure in Europe, because it's not about to just replace the source of energy from fossils and nuclear to renewables, and specifically solar. But we all know that we need way more energy in future than what we need today because of the hydrogen strategy and the plans and electromobility. So in other words, we have something in our hand and are about to start it that needs strong support from politicians, and that would be our wish, that the European politics to much better support the Green Deal, because marketing is great so far, but the measures taken, I think, are not yet really visible, but working on it.
Thank you, Dr. Effert. Now gets to the next one. I start with a quote: "World-class research as available in Europe is crucial for the longer-term success of manufacturing initiatives in the highly competitive and rapidly innovating PV sector." This was said by Professor Marko Topic, chair of the European Technology and Innovation Platform, which is supported by the European Commission. It's a large PV stakeholders organization for research and development and innovation. It's in a certain sense the interface between the EU member states and the policymakers. And so Marko, Green Deal for you, what does it mean?
From Slovenia, it is great pleasure and honor to be at this panel. And definitely we have many challenges ahead of us, but we can be proud of everything what we have achieved so far. And I believe that this year's Becquerel Prize winner, Professor Henry Snaith, who I congratulate wholeheartedly, is a proof how innovative, how successful research and development is in Europe. And this is a flagship, certainly, that we need to build upon. The European Green Deal is, of course, a tool. It provides a regulatory framework how we can accelerate this research and development and re-strengthen the manufacturing of photovoltaics in Europe. It is not only that the scientists and engineers build up the technology, but this is actually the ecosystem that allows us to accelerate and re-strengthen manufacturing in Europe. Industry alone cannot be successful as working together with across the whole value chain and with all the sectors together. So I see that policy and politicians in Europe are honest and well dedicated for the European Green Deal, despite the coronavirus and the weaker economy. But I think this is the real opportunity, of course, a challenge to make the energy transition as planned, and at the same time also to re-strengthen economy in Europe.
Oh, thank you, Marko. Very great. Now, last but not least, we're getting a little bit to the ground. So I'm welcoming Paolo Rossi. We are going in a region which is not far from actually where I'm living. So he's the director of the Azienda Elettrica di Massagno in the Canton Ticino of Switzerland. And he basically engaged in an innovation community, which developed its own 100% self-consumption energy system based on PV and hydroelectricity. But that's not all. I think later we will have opportunity that Paolo Rossi will say us about OptiFlex and artificial intelligence in steering that. So Paolo, what does it mean for you, the Green Deal?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very proud for me and for my organization to be here. Green Deal means simply, according to my experience, that we have to put PV and distributed energy resources into a framework, because just in a framework, it can work efficiently and create, let's say, the opportunity for the energy transition to be fully achieved. And in my opinion, we have to address not only technological question or question based on artificial intelligence and algorithms, but we have to address some questions regarding, for example, the regional impact, because we know that PV is is impacting differently in town than in suburbs, or to address also social question, because we know that PV is impacting mainly on household properties, but not for people living in renting flats. And therefore, we need to involve them too if we want to achieve the breakthrough. And finally, we have also to address question about the grid stability. That means if we want to use PV as a tool and distributed energy resources in general as a tool for achieving the grid stability and the grid efficiency, or if we want to have it as a commodity in order to trade it freely. That's the main question, but I think that we need urgently to establish a framework in order to address all these questions for achieving a very efficient system.
Okay, thank you, Paolo. So I would come already with a little bit more critical question. As you remember, maybe at the worst time of the pandemic, often the European dependence of foreign production was highlighted. Now, looking into photovoltaics, do you see a strong need to bring back significant production in Europe? Or in other words, how important is manufacturing in the European Union along the whole value chain? And that question goes in first hand to Walburga, and then later to Dr. Erfurt. It's more, what do you expect from placing manufacturing into Europe?
Okay, thanks very much for the question. I would have a whole slide actually on that question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
But I'm happy to.
If you manage to find the screen share button, go ahead. It's good.
Okay, whatever you prefer. I just thought that we have some presentations, but I'm happy to go into your question right away. So from our perspective, so we, as I said at the start, we are representing the whole value chain of the solar industry and also manufacturing. And we do think that the Green Deal, but also in particular the recovery package, is a huge opportunity to also see manufacturing of cells, modules, and wafers back in Europe. So, and we see more and more political momentum around that as well. We have just recently launched the Solar Manufacturing Accelerator in order to indeed do what you just said, bring back manufacturing to Europe, in particular in these areas, because there is still an environment in Europe where we have market leaders in other parts of the value chain, but these parts are missing. And I'm looking to Gunther. Gunther has one of the projects which are very prominent in the Solar Manufacturing Accelerator. So in a nutshell, what we do is try to bring together very interesting projects which we have in Europe, with the fantastic R&D environment we have in Europe, with some innovative ideas which have to just get on the ground, bring them together with policymakers, because what we need is commitment from politicians, and what we need is also getting the finance community getting interested. I still remember your question, Heinz, from last year, where you asked the community at EU PVSEC whether they would be wanting to invest in PV manufacturing. And I was quite disappointed at the time. And because I still remember it was about 50-50. But because what we see is more and more appetite from the investors community to indeed invest in manufacturing in Europe. So if you would pose the question today, probably you would get a different answer.
Okay, I understand that would have been also the right question today. Would be quite interesting. Let us see, maybe we can put something like this at the end if this technically works. Now to Dr. Erfurt, a little bit also in this direction. You are now situated in a region which is known for, let's say, skilled workers, but also in a region which suffers from keeping jobs in the coal industry. So how do you see this? Is that an argument in going to the place where you want to manufacture that actually help and perspective for jobs of people which have been working in the coal industry?
It definitely is. So it's pretty attractive also for local politics. If we have industrial projects in future industries that provide opportunities to transform jobs. That's one element. One of the key arguments for us why we've been choosing Solar Valley, as well as the former Solar World location in East Germany, is clearly the skilled workers, which we believe are around. More than 5,000 people have been working in that industry. Started it from scratch initially before it started becoming very successful globally, and it's clearly a very important argument and element why we are going there.
Okay. Let us see a little bit now down the value chain. So we heard that from Paolo Rossi that a 100% supply of renewable energies already works on the regional level. Can you show a little bit more in detail what was required for it, or in which sense there was a citizen engagement which was contributing to the success?
Yes, of course. First of all, we are a DSO. That means what in German is called a Verteilnetzbetreiber. That means that we are managing grids. And obviously, a large part of the territory is already built up and have already some infrastructures. And therefore, if you want to get a breakthrough, getting the citizen involved and getting an increased self-consumption at local level, then the utility, they should do also a devolution. That means that we decided in one district, a small one, just for testing, to devolute one of our low voltage lines to the community. And so we are part together with our consumers of an energy community. And we installed inside, we already roll out all our meters with smart meters. We decided also to install a district battery in order to increase self-consumption and to let it possible to shift the production from day to night or to evening. And that's brought, and we put also an algorithm inside in order to shift sometimes the flexibility in order to create the premises for getting a system efficient one. And just for letting you know, before we create this community, the self-consumption rate was for each consumer or prosumer around 25%. I mean, 25% of the production was used by the prosumers, and 75 was simply feeding into the grid. And now we reach also during the summertime level of above 90%. And that's just a great result. And on the second one, we arrived to control the load profile during doing some peak shavings, which is helping also the efficiency of the whole grid in the distribution territory. And that's, I think, the bigger achievement that we reached at this level. And now, after a testing which is lasting more than 18 months now, we decided to launch 3 others energy communities made in this sense. But I guess that one of the most creative elements in our project was the involvement of the utility and having a devolution. I would use this term. I don't know if it's 100% correct, but it's quite understandable. That means that we give to the community available our low voltage lines in order to create the frame for the electrical frame for those communities.
So you say it was basically a combination of involving the local community, the utilities, and also to have a very intelligent concept why this made it a success. So basically interweaving actors and also showing citizens that it's profitable for them.
Yeah, there is quite profitable because it's depending also the local law. but we arrive not just to have more efficiency into the grid and more efficiency during the consumption, but because of the difference in prices, we arrive to have a discount for the user, which is quite significant. And obviously, this is also, let's say, like a stimulation for the citizen to get involved. Obviously, we create also a website. They can control its sound consumption. They can also put intelligent at home in order to control its consumption, to reduce its risk. And that is a good evolution. Obviously, the main problem would be how long it will last, because now they have an interest. We are a little bit under the spotlights of the actuality, but how long this attention will last? That's the main question that we are dealing with.
The effect of the Green Deal also, because the Green Deal looks into prosumers and citizen engagement and so on. So it's integrating, and that brings me a little bit to let's say, a scenario. Now, consider I'm still a student and studying energy technology at the University of Ljubljana, probably. And I would ask Walburga, now, what do you think? Should I more now specialize in photovoltaics or in hydrogen, or in both?
So, if you can specialize in both, all the better. But there's a good reason why you should specialize in photovoltaics. I mean, obviously, hydrogen is the big buzzword at this point in time, but the backbone will be renewables for hydrogen, and in particular solar. So that's what we also have shown in our study, which we just recently published, 100% Renewable Europe, where we show that the backbone of the energy transition will be PV. So when we look into 2040, 2050, in this study, depending a little bit on the scenario, whether you're more with the laggard scenario or more with the more forward-going scenarios, we talk about in between 40 and 60% of the energy production in Europe being covered by PV. And that also includes already a large chunk of hydrogen, because we do believe that renewable hydrogen will play a major role in the energy system going towards the decarbonization of our economy. So a lot of that hydrogen will be powered by PV. So both areas are very interesting areas, but I would go for PV.
Okay. Well, you did actually. So, now something similar to Marco. Within ETIP, now you have a totally broad overview about what's going on in research. But if you would be now asked by a Green Deal politician, where you have one single choice of where you could invest the money, where would you invest in R&D?
Sorry.
Okay.
Now I'm back. So definitely, it is the high efficiency concepts in photovoltaics that in the upstream part certainly needs to be further developed and accelerated, and Europe is taking the lead. I'm coming back to the Becquerel Prize winner. And actually, I would say that the rest of the world is following what has been achieved and invented in Europe. On the other hand, I would add additional aspect of digitalization, which was also mentioned or presented by Elias de Kaiser, and actually. We are going virtual realities everywhere, and definitely also the energy system is becoming more and more digitalized, and all these aspects definitely help photovoltaics to be embedded in the clean energy system, not only just embedded, but as a backbone in the future. If I may say, ETPV also promote this vision of 100% renewables and how to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is on my backside. But even more, I would say that we need to act across the whole value chain upstream, which means re-strengthening manufacturing in Europe. And this is where we join the forces together with Solar Power Europe, taking the lead with the European Solar Manufacturing Council and ETPV as one voice to accelerate and re-strengthen manufacturing in Europe across the whole value chain. At the same time, in the downstream, definitely we need to digitalize everything, including all the businesses and success cases.
There is more or less coming now interesting questions from the audience here, which came through YouTube and whatever channels, which I'm getting here streamed. And I would just say, why not picking up now the first one? And before I continue maybe the debate which we have internally, there's a very critical one. And maybe this goes to all of you. It's about what role or what size of markets and production Europe could face when it's comparing to China. And I know that Solar Power Europe has also Chinese members. So the first comment would come from Walburga, but I would like then also to see from the others a little bit. Heavier chance, let's say, by the sheer amount of money which is probably required, which will be certainly a little bit part in the recovery package, but still this would be too small probably.
Okay, very happy to take this one.
Yeah.
So first of all, let me explain Solar Power Europe. 80% of Solar Power Europe's membership are members with European headquarters, and only a fraction is coming from China, because we have members all over the world. So so to start with, and then the question. Obviously, I mean, there is competition, but we do think that there is a window of opportunity we see today to have manufacturing being more active in Europe again. And indeed, it's a small window of opportunity. So what we need to do is to scale up very quickly. And what we've shown together with our strategic partners, and thanks Marco for mentioning in the Solar Manufacturing Accelerator, is that there are projects ready to step up and to step up to gigawatt scale. And I'm happy that one of the projects is amongst us here today with Gunther and Maya Burger, because this was one of the 10 projects. So we made a choice to present the most innovative and the most ready to go projects in a kickoff meeting beginning of July, and Maya Burger was one of them. So these 10 projects, they all want to scale up to gigawatt scale very quickly, because I think that's decisive. And you mentioned, Heinz, that money is an issue, obviously. So the recovery program is already providing for 750 billion euros, which will be spent over the next couple of years up until 2024. So also in a relatively small time frame. I mean, obviously, not everything of that will be spent on solar manufacturing, but we are at the moment trying to make sure that a substantial part of it will also be spent on PV manufacturing in Europe. But we also want to encourage private investors, obviously, to invest in PV manufacturing. And that's just because of the sheer numbers we are looking at when it comes to solar development in the next years. So I mentioned we are forecasting 40 to 60% of solar, which will be will make the backbone of the European energy system by 2040, 2050. The numbers, if you are calculating that in terawatt, is 7.7 to 8.8 terawatt installed capacity of PV in Europe. So huge amounts. We are today seeing some 20 gigawatts being installed per year, which will add up to 30, 40 gigawatt in the next years, according to our GMO. So it's a huge market we're looking at in Europe. And that should also drive PV manufacturing, and that should also drive investors to finance in PV manufacturing in Europe.
So that's something about the market push. I come later, maybe, if you have time to this point. It sounds like that you not only need a solar manufacturing accelerator, you need also a solar financing accelerator. And I will help you. Now, I got green light here from our technicians that the poll of last year we can repeat at the end today. So maybe we get already from the audience some of these investors. But now I want to ask Günther, how do you see the, oh, there comes already now the poll? Okay. I need to ask, okay. Obviously one person has replied now. So let's make the poll now. That's amazing. So just to tell you, we made it last year in Marseille. The question before the panel, I think 53% would invest personally, I mean, of the audience. And at the end, it was then 54, I think, when at the end of the debate. Now this picture has totally changed. That's amazing. Yeah. So we probably, it's always the square root of n problem until it settles. But it looks like that it would settle at 80%. It means people didn't invest any money during the pandemic, so they have now a lot of money on the bank. Looks like. Okay, very good, very good. 80%. Walburga, what do you say?
Yeah, that's my general feeling. So I'm happy that this is confirmed by the poll you just did, because indeed, not just private persons, but when I also talk to politicians, they're getting more and more interested in investing in or supporting to invest in PV manufacturing. Again, we just talked to the Cabinet of Breton last week. They are looking into possibilities how they could support from the European Commission side. So there's, just to give you one example, so there's more and more interest really.
Oh, now the audio's gone.
That was it actually from my side.
Yeah, no, it's back. You're back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
There's nothing more to it. What I just said is that I not just feel that there's more and more interest from investor side, but also from the political side. I don't know whether that was still understandable.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I would like to ask Günther, can you confirm this? Is there a better investment climate?
Well, we have just taken the first step to finance our phase 1 project, and this was completely financed by private investors. We did it through a capital share increase and got the trust from our existing and also from new shareholders, and could convince with this case. I think in the equity space there is clearly appetite to go green and to invest in green technologies. Banks in Europe are still very, very reluctant for the known reasons, including the European Investment Bank, because they've been suffering so much from the disastrous end of the first trial to set up European PV manufacturing. But I'm sure also from talking a lot with politicians and those banks, we will regain the trust and convince banks also to support the financing, because the money part of it should be the least problem for all of us. And as soon as we have understood all stakeholders that PV manufacturing in Europe is a must, will be the foundation, as Walburga rightly said, the foundation for hydrogen, for electromobility. And, failing in doing so would result in a dependency from Asia, primarily from China. And I think this is something that Europe cannot afford.
Okay, thank you. I want to come back a little bit to the Green Deal and the policy areas of the current next generation package. There is a very, very big part foreseen for the digitalization of industry, society, of each and everything, and administration. Now, I have seen and that goes a little bit to Paolo Rossi and later to Marco, I've seen that a large part of your concept of this community, 100% community, is actually a digital system or even artificial intelligence to steer it. How do you expect how this innovation in digitalization will continue? On which direction and the leaders?
From my opinion, one of the biggest problem is that in the traditional world, let's say the leader was the demand and the offer was following the demand. Instead, with the PV and the distributed energy resources, the leader is by the production and the consumption should follow. Therefore, in order to steer consumption, to adapt to the production, which is variable, which is not programmable, then you have to need to use artificial intelligence and digitalization. So you have for sure to have data coming every 50 minutes at minimum, but even more from each consumer, so you know how they behave. You have to store all this data in a central unit so that artificial intelligence can learn from it and can steer then the consumption, shifting the consumption when the production is there. And this is exactly what we are doing now with our project named Optiflex, which is now used in this energy community in order to achieve more efficiency and to use the energy produced locally. In fact, inside a small area. And this is exactly the point. And if I can come back to bringing back production of PV in Europe, if I do a comparison, at the beginning of this century, you saw that Chinese succeed the breakthrough because they had good products, but they offer also services. In particular, financing. So they offer you the panel, and the way do you have to pay them. And I think this is one of the main key of success. And now we have the opportunity in Europe to offer a complete system, some services in order to have digitalization together, in order to get finally PV integrated into a system that can offer efficiency, can offer reliability, and can offer independence. And that's, in my opinion, one of the key. And the key is related to digitalization and artificial intelligence, where we can have the lead as European.
Would ask Marco also, do I have soon an app on my smartphone where I can see that my solar roof is selling to the electricity exchange at higher rates than I would need to pay it?
There are already the apps to do that, but definitely the challenge is really big. The system complexity in energy sector is really huge, and I think that the progress so far really proves that we have the cutting edge on one hand, and the digitalization is already going on. It is actually in all the, not only the vital parts, but everywhere. And what energy sector is concerned, and where we also put a lot of effort, is the cybersecurity, because reliability of supply and of course digitalization goes of course with the risks, and cybersecurity is one of the grand challenges of the modern society. Like the virtual power plants distributed on many roofs, on the parking lots, agro PV or floating PV. We need to build really a robust digital system and this definitely also goes in the frame of research and development and innovation. So PV is becoming not only interdisciplinary, but multidisciplinary and overarching the whole science, engineering, and technology.
Okay, so that's in principle a good outlook, because there's a lot of investment also foreseen in future where PV can profit from. Let me come back a little bit to markets. That goes a little bit to each of you. How far do you see that PV can see new markets by the obviously increasing electrification of transport? So is there a particular window of opportunity for PV? Should it be more aggressive in this direction? So I start again with Walburga there, and then we going to Gunther and Marco and Paulo.
Okay, we try to be as aggressive as possible when it comes to the electrification of transport. We have founded an alliance, the Electrification Alliance, together with the main stakeholders of the energy world, so with the main associations, main European associations, to really push for electrification, not only in transport, but also in all other kinds of areas where it is the most efficient way of using energy. So electrification will be key in transport. What we see already in some countries is, you know, that PV installations and buying an electric vehicle is very much interlinked. So in particular in Germany, we have seen that that, you know, whenever that there's a big correlation between buying an EV and having PV installed. So we do think that this is a trend which will continue, and with the take up of electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, and less of fuel cell electric vehicles, but battery electric vehicles, we also see a certain push for PV at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Gunther?
Yeah, so I clearly share the opinion. I remember back maybe 10 years or 7 years when Solar Power Europe still was named EPR, there was a scenario developed that was called paradigm change. And the paradigm change goes way beyond the normal growth rates we are discussing. And I think now is the time, exactly for the reasons of growing electromobility, hydrogen. We will clearly not power this by burning more coal or building new nuclear power plants, simply also beside the environmental reasons, but moreover because of the economics behind PV. So a clear yes, electrical consumption may double or even triple in the coming years because of the new effects. That's why I believe it's more than just exchanging sources of energy. It's entering into a new era of how we work, how we live, and what we do with solar or renewable energy.
Okay, Marco?
Well, yeah, I would just add simply another aspect which was already mentioned partially, hydrogen. Definitely only clean or green hydrogen in the frame of solar fuels. And it is not just about hydrogen to be as a vector for the energy system, it is also ammonia to produce heat. We are going power to X scenario, and X means everything. It is all the technologies and all the needs. So either heat or coming back to through the fuel cells, back to electricity, to the power. I think that really these are the reasons why we all believe and advocate for PV, solar PV as the backbone of the clean energy system.
Okay, I think Paulo can maybe say something. Does his community there already have electric cars? Is it part already of the self-consumption?
Yes, exactly. I would just add two things because there are two condition precedents in order to make PV more efficient for electromobility. The first one is that the electrical vehicle can be used as a battery. That means they shall be bidirectional, not just loading, but just downloading also energy into the grid, which is not yet the case. And this is a major step which have to be achieved in order to get more efficiency in a PV production. And that's in the PV involvement. That's just one point. The second one is that we need to standardize, let's say, the interface and the communication between the loading station and the digital world, because there is now a cacophony of different rules and different interfaces, which make it difficult to use really in an efficient way digital world to the loading station and to the electromobility. And that's there are the two condition precedents, and policy have to be involved in that, but also the technology, they should harmonize in the standards.
Okay. Thanks. I'm coming now back to some critical audience questions. One is going in the direction of we have currently an overcapacity of PV production, and how would European production insert itself in this? But another one is a quote which I want to bring you from Fatih Birol, the Director General of IEA, who recently said in May, the biggest problem in world's energy is the low oil price, and this must be higher. So the question is, how do we can, at very low demand, we have low conventional energy prices, PV needs to compete with them. Is there any policy measure which you see within the Green Deal which would change the situation or which would be required? Because it looks like that we need some radical thinking, saying after the pandemic, we just cannot go ahead with business as usual. We have seen the effects of the industry. We have seen effects of extremely low energy prices, which will continue. And against this, we want to increase PV. Is there a single, or let's say a set of policy measures which you see in first hand by Burger?
Okay, thanks for this question. So yes, I mean, first of all, we have to note that PV together with wind already today is the cheapest energy source. So when we look at Lazar or Bloomberg figures, that's where you always see PV having the lowest LCOE. So to start with, and then if you ask me what the Green Deal can do, there is one single measure for me that stands out, which is taxation. When you look at European taxation systems, they are very different in the different member states, but what they all have in common is that they're still favoring fossil fuels, and that has to stop. So for me, that is a very important, the most important measure to take when it comes to competition between different energy sources. Because fossils are still far too cheap and are favored when it comes to taxation. So that is something that we need to stop in Europe.
Okay, I forgot to unmute. The opinion of a manufacturer. So you are across some very competitive energy environment.
So that question goes to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think speaking or thinking about the question strategically, I think a continent like Europe can not on the one hand sign a Paris Treaty agreement and show the world that we really mean it to reduce carbon emissions, and on the other hand, opportunistically look into a short-term outlook of how oil and gas prices might continue. And I think there need to be the regulations that Walburga described that help propelling the renewable energy, and also the appetite of the current players in the fossil fuel conventional energy business is growing, and nobody restricts the big oil giants to switch from one source of energy to the other, and I think they will do eventually. So I don't really see a conflict, but it needs to be regulated by the governments, clearly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you're for more regulation. What is your Swiss experience, Paolo, in this regarding utilities and regulations?
I join Walburga opinion. That means that in Switzerland we have a very high CO2 taxation, which will increase in the next years. And I think that we have to put the weight on the external cost and the environmental cost if we want to have a decarbonized society in 2050.
Okay. I'm choosing some other questions which are coming in here. One is, again, the importance of storage. So when we want to see PV as a really huge part of the energy system and it's cheap enough, how do we relate in terms of competing investments in storage? Is that something which is to our favor, or should we say we still need to develop PV much further than storage? So what is the balance between it? Marco, I would say in first hand.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, storage is certainly very important, and the progress so far is that really promising. Just the batteries and their prices fall at a certain pace, which is really promising. On the other hand, I would say that all these costs of storage has been included in the analysis, in the cost analysis of the new clean energy system. And the good news is that solar PV and wind, together with storage, will be not only solution for decarbonization, but also the overall cost of the system, of the new clean energy system, will be lower, which means that actually we are already competitive, but since we will become even cheaper, there is still a lot of potential that definitely we ask credibly for support within the frame of European Green Deal, and definitely Europe dedicated and made a decision for climate neutral projects. So solar PV is certainly the proper choice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's another question which I think can be best answered during this conference about power to gas and storage technology as such. We have special sessions on this, so the people in the audience on this question, we are deferring to them. I would like now start slowly to come to an end of this very, very interesting debate. And I think as a start, I would like to ask again this question for the poll. So if the technical part is ready, so that would be the poll similar to the very first one. Do you think the European post-pandemic recovery plan will boost PV in Europe? Okay, here it is. And I just remember the previous poll was 75% to 25. Hey. Okay, let us see. That looks like a little bit of skepticism is here. Okay. At the moment, it would look like pretty much unchanged. It's around. We cannot see how many replies were there, but I think we should not look to the percentage figures. It looks like a little bit more, but whether this is in the uncertainty of this poll, I don't know. Okay, let's take it a little bit like Walburga was last year very disappointed. There was only this very, very slight increase. Also this year we have a slight increase after the panel regarding the post-pandemic recovery plan with this boost PV. This has very often something to do that if people which spontaneously answer yes to the first question are exposed to many, many details and maybe challenges, and then are getting more skeptic. So this means this panel was actually a very serious one and not a populistic one. And I thank you already now for your contributions, but now there's a last task for you to do. And this is not so easy because I will ask you, can you make a conclusion of this particular debate, but in one single sentence? That can pose a grammatical problem maybe or a semantic problem. One single sentence to summarize this panel. And again, I probably would need to, now the sequence on my picture has changed. Now Günther Erfurt is the first one. Okay, you're my
All right.
top, yeah? Okay.
Okay, so one sentence. There is a clear must for Europe to regain more control over PV by starting own manufacturing, because PV is the oil of the future. It's among the cheapest sources of electricity, and it provides the perfect setup for all the challenges that are ahead of us in terms of changing the industry towards a green industry and to transform jobs and things like this.
In a newspaper, this would be one of the longest sentences. Thank you very much, but it was comprehensive. Very good. Okay, now Walburga.
Okay, I try to challenge the long sentence.
Okay. You know, we have people here which need to type this in this very moment. Okay.
So the main result for me is that there's much more confidence in the virtual room for PV manufacturing in Europe. And I want to also add a call to everyone. There's 750 billion euros on the table from the next generation EU package, so from the recovery package. And it is up for all of us to convince national governments, which have to draw up national plans now, how to spend that money. So please go to your national governments and convince them that this money has to be spent on PV.
Perfect, perfect, because this is a very important message. And I think there's only time until end of September. Okay, Marco.
Europe must select solar PV as the key technology in clean energy scenario, and it should assure that the solar PV technology across the whole value chain, upstream by re-strengthening manufacturing and downstream by accelerated deployment, is a must.
Perfect. Very good, Marco. And now, Paolo, last but not least.
Okay, I think that distributed energy resources shall perform as a system offering different solutions altogether and not single solution.
Thank you so much. So again, I think we're a really great panel here, and you managed it very well virtually without having directly a contact to each other. I think you will be also very disciplined. I'm sorry that we missed maybe a presentation of Walburga, but it was ad hoc like this. I think you were much better by presenting it verbally. I think we had very, very intelligent contributions. We were highlighting a lot of what we all expect. We are by far not depressed. In contrary, we are very enthusiastic about a bright future for photovoltaics. And I think this is a very, very good start for this online EU PVSEC, which will continue after our lunch break with a number of parallel sessions. And I think we all deserve now a little bit to have a break, to have some refreshment and maybe something to eat. I thank you all again for coming and giving all these nice contributions and answering so, I think, deliberately also to the questions which were coming. Thanks again and goodbye, and see you later in the afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.